On occasion, the first thing to go when you wake up isn't fear, but your determination to succeed. The spark that propelled you ahead doesn't merely dim. It disappears. A peaceful silence takes its place. A strange and expansive stillness pervades, though it is not quite peace. Something deeper, unnamed, causes you to wake up and stare at the ceiling rather than sadness. Everything is booked up. Your hands are no longer reaching for the goals, but they are still there. It is you. Perch on the edge of your bed and reminisce about the things that used to energize you. Once upon a time, your mornings were illuminated by the chase. A sense of purpose drove you to get up early, plot your day, and stick to the habits that defined you. Yet, these days, the drive seems far away, as if a ghost from your past is lingering on the outskirts of your recollection. Boringness permeates the rituals. Every meeting seems predetermined. Nothing, not even the aspirations you had written on your vision board, moves you anymore. You're very active. You're pretty strong. Awakening, you are, with your spirit. No longer prepared to give up peace in exchange for pressure. Maybe fear was the driving force behind what you thought was motivation. Feeling inadequate is a common fear. The dread of being disregarded. Anxieties of not moving. Except that right now you're just standing there, and you feel a deep longing for the truth, not for any other objective. Less scrolling occurs. You converse less. You quit trying to fill the empty space with things. Something delicate starts to change in that stillness. The you that felt pressure to impress, prove, and push is fading away. Maybe there is no emptiness in your feelings. Space could be the answer. The place where you can become who you really are again. Honest, genuine, and unpolished. What then becomes of the things that used to fill you with meaning but now seem to be empty shells? That is just the beginning. Something far more sincere is starting to take shape. Soundtrack. The loss of energy upon waking isn't due to physical exertion. The question is fundamental to existence. It goes farther than rest or muscles. Every part of you, your bones, your chest, and your spirit, feels its hum. Your exhaustion is more than that. Your heart is hollow, and sleeping won't help. Reaches out to touch it. No amount of relaxation on a weekend will help with this kind of exhaustion. An unraveling at the level of the soul. This is sacred burnout. You have lived too long disoriented, not because you have accomplished too much. All the hustle and bustle. Try and make it big in a performance-obsessed society. Everything starts to crumble into your hands like sand. Falling initially feels like giving up. Pretending is something you strive for. You reassure yourself that it's simply a difficult period. More coffee is consumed, and more is checked. Spaces, and to add additional assignments. However, you remain unmoved. Everything you owned, even the things you cherished before, now seems like a burden. Once a saber-sharp ambition, yours now lies dull and burdensome. Your inability to tolerate any more superficial interaction is the real reason you decline invitations, not a lack of time. When even one thing becomes too much, you stop trying to juggle them all at once. You long for the days of complete quiet in the places where chatter once thrived. At 6 in the morning, there's a man who never sleeps. Same as before. Throughout a long career, through decades of career ups and downs, he remained self-disciplined and driven. But recently, he's been known to sit in the car for quite a while after parking, just staring out the window and taking in his surroundings. Entering that very office now feels like entering another person's life, and he has no idea why. He is not upset, not furious. He is now finished. No, in a sacred sense, not dramatic. Exactly like a tree's limbs gradually stop extending toward the sun as winter approaches. Not because it's near death, but because it understands. Rest is necessary for life. A collapse does not occur in this type of burnout. It is simplicity. No more. No more pretending. No more running. No more chasing identities that were never yours. It's a divine disengagement from the roles you played for so long that they almost became your skin. Worst of all, when the outside world starts to pull away, all that's left is you, a person you barely know. Carl Jung was fully cognizant of this. A great number of crises of are not based on disease, but on a lack of purpose in contemporary life. When you start to let go of your ego, the vitality that supported your persona starts to drain. No, it remains. It turns around. Stillness, space, and silence are prerequisites. Therefore, the first step toward reconnecting is the burnout that feels like disconnection. In order for something fresh to come in, the mind must first empty itself sufficiently. Something genuine, not something more pronounced or grandiose. You are very active, is being rewired. No, you're not damaged. As you shed this identity, you become a new person. A sacred intelligence is active in this peculiar, painful stillness. Even if your mind is racing, your body is alert. Calmness washes over you. You lower your voice. Somewhere in the crevices, your spirit starts to murmur. Living at this pace was never intended for you. This is too much for you to bear. You can relax now. This lack of emotion is not melancholy. You're experiencing a more symbolic unraveling. As you face the impending collapse, it could be your identity is not failing, but your ego is dissolving. This sacred disintegration of your never-to-be-remain self feels like loss, but it is really liberating. It remains silent. Instead of crashing like a hurricane, it deteriorates gradually, like a weathered wall. Prior objectives seem like costumes abandoned on a stage you have no interest in returning to. The ovation that moved you before now reverberates through a deserted room. Additionally, that inner voice that constantly urged you to achieve more on a daily basis makes less noise and impresses more. It isn't that you're broken. It's that the part of you that always felt the need to stand out is finally letting go. Ego death, a necessary undoing, was what Jung called this process. Even though you're actually returning home, it feels like you're falling apart. Egos are boundaries by nature. Identity is structured in it. In a world where certainty is valued, it provides direction while keeping the persona intact. However, the ego's hold loosens, not in defiance, but in submission as the soul awakens. The rain starts to pour. Not at all. This is not meant to be a form of punishment, but rather to create room for something more substantial and sustainable. But because we've staked so much of our value on it, seeing it fall is like seeing our own identity disintegrate. A woman once flourished in a dynamic and fast-paced environment. Success was evidence that she was lovable, and ambition was a shield she wore. Metrics, performance reviews, compliments, and flawless smiles were the neat measures by which her life was measured. But now she stops in the middle of her work, gazing blankly into space as she sheds tears. Am unable to provide an explanation. Not because they are hopeless, but because they are confused. No emotion comes over her as she ignores the compliments on social media. Her reputation and body of work remain highly regarded, but the applause from the audience no longer affects her. Fearing to acknowledge the truth that is beginning to take shape within her, she sits in silence. Becoming this version of myself is no longer something I desire. I'm absolutely terrified right now. Not because you're vanishing, but because the false self-image you cultivated through accolades, titles, and approval is crumbling, and you can't. But have no idea what will come up to replace it. Egos don't go away quietly when they start to die. It fights back. It makes you believe that you're going downhill, that you're not making it, and that no one will remember you. In reality, though, you are experiencing a recalibration of your inner compass. Your motivation has shifted from performance and fear to something more profound than anything you've ever experienced. Yes, this is where the paradox is. Quieter, but far from empty, is life as the ego crumbles. I no longer feel the need to impress. There is less of a need to react immediately. Your tenure has ended. Keen on receiving admiration. Instead, you yearn to be genuine. You get a taste of what it's like to live a life apart from performing for the very first time. At this point, you may be grieving because of everything that has been taken away from you and the time spent engrossed in a narrative that was never truly yours. But there is also freedom. For the reason that you are now prioritizing truthfulness over deceit, silence over extravagance, and core rather than identity. You're holding your own. Instead of being the one everyone praised, you're reverting to the one who stood on the sidelines and observed, concealed behind the curtain throughout. That unassuming, self-sufficient side of you that has always been there. Someone who merely wanted to be honest and never sought approval for trying to be remarkable. After the ego is gone, the next layer starts to quiver. Being loved required you to wear a mask. Soundtrack. Our collective mask-wearing is driven more by practicality than dishonesty. We construct a social self, what Carl Jung called a persona, in order to navigate society. Here we are at our most socially adept, where we know just what to say to make friends and feel needed. Year after year, it has helped us. We rely on it to get through everything from job interviews to first dates to family dinners. Whenever we want to yell, it cracks a smile. In the midst of our breakdown, it pretends, I'm fine. However, after waking up, a change occurs. The mask is too big, itchy all over. Its burden becomes intolerable. And all of a sudden, the grin feels too constricting. The jocularity seems scripted. In the midst of speaking, you realize, who am I doing this for? And that's when it doesn't explode. The cracks appear gradually and softly. You no longer attend get-togethers that were a source of inspiration. One of us. When conversing, you don't say nearly as much as you used to. Meetings make you feel like an invisible person. And it's not that people around you start to notice. It's more that you've stopped acting, not that you've grown. I see. You've decided you're sick of playing the part of the reliable, easygoing, strong person. Your carefully crafted facade begins to fall off. Because your spirit has had enough of hiding, not because you've failed. Someone in her 40s was once known as the reliable friend. She was kind even when her emotions were raging, remembered people's birthdays, and brought casseroles. However, these days, she finds herself pausing when asked how she is doing, not due to being overwhelmed, but rather because the automatic response no longer applies. If being good requires her to lie, she no longer wants to lie. Plans are thus canceled. All calls go to voicemail with her. Conversations that make her feel like she needs to perform are no longer entertained by her. Everyone is curious about the change. She is, in fact, sick of playing a supporting role in a story that will never end. Had the same depth as her. This presents a subtle but profound psychological challenge. The persona was always on the side of good. It connected the public and private spheres and served as a tool and strategy in its own right. However, it stifles freedom when it engulfs your daily life instead of liberating you. Once you awaken, the part of yourself that was dependent on your persona starts to fade away. For the sake of acceptance, you will no longer compromise your integrity. If you can avoid being understood by others, that's better than being praised for what you do. Face covering. Because of this, you may feel lonely. Relationships based on your past behavior may erode. Someone may say you're changed, distant, or icy. The key difference, though, is this. The truth is starting to seep out of you. You can express your disapproval, not always verbally, but certainly with actions. And this reality serves as a starting point. Quietness, which was formerly frightening, is now revered. Soon, you'll start to see your withdrawal not as a way out, but as a way back. No, you are not falling apart. A new persona is emerging among you. And the remnant is delicate, genuine, and unprocessed. A persona may be useful if. Okay, but now it wants to be let go. Everything you held dear, your hopes, your ambitions, your vision boards, your titles, and your picture of success, disappear as it breaks. This is not because you've lost hope, but rather because a more profound realization is dawning upon you. The aspirations it supported also start to wane when that mask rips. Not because you were unsuccessful, but because you no longer feel motivated by your former ambitions. Music. Quite a few of them have been accomplished by you. Everything you ever wanted in a life has been constructed by you. Having said that, where it begins and ends, nothing falls to the ground. The praise doesn't reverberate. This vision board is strange to me. The fervor that propelled you earlier has transformed into ash. And now you find yourself staring at the plans for a life you made before you had a clue about your true identity. We are not ignoring this. A new day has begun. a subtle but unsettling understanding that a part of your past self was responsible for much of your pursuits. Ambitious goals now feel like ill-fitting clothing. Thoughtful, simply outgrown. It is you. As you explore your house, your career, and your relationships, you can start to make out the contours of a life that has been shaped not only by your decisions, but also by your upbringing. What was once a genuine interest is now more like a stage. Nothing about the house, the title, or the approval speaks to the emerging soul. An individual in his early 50s achieved the pinnacle of success after devoting the majority of his life to climbing the corporate ladder. However, he no longer hesitates at green lights. Instead, he finds himself pausing because quiet contemplation, an unidentifiable burden weighs on him as he peruses his calendar. Structure used to be his sweet spot. Empty space now brings him solace. His once optimized morning run is now just a peaceful stroll in the park. He starts to speak less, but with more sincerity. As he releases his need to become, he begins to sense his true self resurfacing. This change is profoundly mental. In his work, Carl Jung characterized individuation as the elimination of false aspects of one's identity rather than its enhancement through addition. In cases where their once powerful aspirations begin to fade as their ego and persona begin to crumble, they typically emerged as a result of social shaping, the need to fit in, and the struggle for survival. Now, that it isn't supported by anything, though, the spirit starts to murmur something less loud and more genuine. As a result, an unusual tension arises. You feel like you're drifting without well-defined objectives. As you reflect on your life's work, you might ask yourself, was this ever really mine? Matters, including your interests. It may make you feel betrayed. However, a more profound alignment is actually taking place. You have decided that fear and approval are no longer going to power you. You have no intention of running away. Get back to who you were before all that striving, before you were defined by your roles, and before the world shaped your identity. This is a confusing time. Even though you want to just walk away or destroy it, hold on a second. We are standing at a holy threshold. There may be times when your ego demands a complete overhaul of your life. Still, there's another question the spirit has. Quietness, space, and stillness are being requested. For the simple reason that something new is sprouting up where your previous aspirations once stood. Some slower, wiser, and much more personal thing. Its arrival won't be immediately obvious. It will creep up on you gradually as you start prioritizing what makes you feel good rather than what makes you look good. You learn to trust more than praise, and your no starts to mean as much as your yes. Rest assured, you haven't. Become unmotivated. You're no longer interested in the story it was telling. Entering the mysterious holy land of the in-between, you find yourself without a defined future or purpose. To the tune of music, you have changed, but you haven't completely transformed into your new self. You're gradually losing your former self while still in the process of becoming someone new. The area between people's identities is calm, yet it's very charged. A bridge hanging in the mist describes how you feel. Quietness, without a path or a final destination. Then there was the spirit that was once animate, and the time between major life events can be excruciating. Nothing feels right, and you want to act, fix, and fill. A new road has not yet shown its contours, and the old one has disappeared behind you. Here we enter the sacred pause, the cocoon phase, where we undergo a psychological and spiritual metamorphosis. Jung would describe it as an encounter with one's own identity. Calm and reverent, nothing flashy or dramatic. Here, in this liminal space, the metamorphosis takes place. You're being undone, not because you're doing anything. What you are, maturing via de-escalating. You yearn for tranquility, even as the world presses you to be productive. Quitting, resting, easing your edges, and sensing your way back to truth are your deepest desires. Your soul is pleading for alone time, so you start to back out of plans. Not because you're uncaring. You move more slowly. Sometimes you get emotional. Instead of being bored, you sit on the couch and look out the window because you've surrendered. Even though you no longer desire to return, you're still not enticed by what lies ahead. As you float, you won't feel lost, but unanchored. Even though there's no one here, the room is actually quite full. Here we are in the realm of becoming, that holy place where one's constructed self meets their actual self. There was once a man whose life had meaning. I had a task for every day. Nothing was meaningless. But these days he can go hours without speaking. There is no sign of his laptop. No one answers his phone. He takes his time brewing tea, observes the steam rising, and then allows it to cool. What is he anticipating? He is uncertain, and yet he is well aware that he must move forward. Furthermore, within that, out of the blue, he feels the stirrings of an age-old energy within him. Just enough, not too loud or too clear. An awakening paradox is this. Rest is necessary prior to rebirth. There is confusion before there is clarity. It is not meant for you to figure it out at this moment. Dive into the depths of your being, into the peaceful spaces hidden beneath the din. Enter the realm where your spirit starts to recall details that your intellect forgot. The goal is not improvement. Realization is the goal. Also, authenticity takes time. On the Western Hemisphere, somehow, we've learned to dread this pause, to break the stillness with explanations, fill the empty space with fresh aspirations, official designations, and objectives. To the contrary, the soul's operation is unique. In the silence, it murmurs. It opens up gradually like inner petals. In order to listen, it patiently waits for us to pause our performance. Your patience is not a sign of weakness, but rather of an innate understanding that the next chapter of your life cannot be constructed but must be born. Seasons cannot be manipulated. Never try to beat the tide, neither inertia nor motion. Women go through this process called gestation. It is not lost on you. Remaking you is taking place. In this stillness, something dormant starts to surface. That which you don't see. Your shadow comes forward to be seen as the outer layers fall away. Rather than as an impending danger, take it as the reality. It keeps quiet. The object quivers. It seeps into your calmness like a mist that you pretended not to notice before. At last, when you've let go of all the masks and responsibilities that have been holding you back, when your old aspirations are no longer fueling your progress, then there will be enough space for the long-lost aspects of yourself that long to be heard. Not out of anger, but out of memory. The unseen labor of awakening is this. Feelings that you've been able to control, repress, and explain away start to surface. No, it's because you've delved further, not because you've retreated. Fixing the painful parts was often what you meant when you said healing in the past. However, additional steps are now necessary. The request has changed from fixing to feeling. What comes up can feel untamed. Tears that appear out of nowhere. Angry outbursts that you believed you had managed to control. Worry about. Appears in the middle of the night, muttering something about how unworthy you are. Regression does not apply here. We are talking about reintegration here. Angry outbursts over trivial matters or tears over long-forgotten memories from your youth are all possibilities. When your heart was breaking, you were told to calm down, and you remembered your mother's and father's silence and distance. A friend had betrayed you. If you're feeling vulnerable, exposed, and unsettled, you might be asking yourself, shouldn't I be past this? Indeed, this is the relevant section. Jung referred to the dark. In order to stay alive, we have to hide or reject certain aspects of our minds. But these pieces remain forever. They remain motionless. They want love, not dominion, and are now requesting to return. A certain man fooled himself into thinking he was serene, easygoing, unmovable for a long time. However, a subtle fury simmers beneath his politeness as he awakens to the world around. Not directed at any one person in particular, but at a life devoid of the opportunity to express his innermost thoughts and feelings. When he smiled, even though he was uncomfortable or agreed when. He hesitated before saying yes, even though he wanted to scream. Then it all becomes crystal clear to him. His peace was anything but. It was giving up on oneself. At this very moment, his silent voice is rising, not to condemn him, but to set him free. The art of shadow work is this. Reliving the pain or pointing fingers at the past are not the points. The key is to make room for the parts of yourself that were previously forbidden. The repressed little girl who was warned not to weep. The teenager who was shamed for needing. He was an adult who carried out, enjoying life while feeling unnoticed. You're not weak in these areas. They embody your completeness that is yearning to be reclaimed. To empathize with their pain is not to shatter, in order to reawaken. And it is in the pain that something holy takes place. You learn to use your sorrow as a map. The tears you shed dissolve the hard shell that encases your heart. A glimmer of hope for a new beginning emerges through that shell. Reason being, you start to perceive your light in a different light after you've faced your shadow. Rather than using it as an excuse to hide, calm blaze ignited by truthfulness. Attempting perfection is no longer a priority for you. The chaos is becoming too much for you to ignore. At long last, you're sitting with it all. It is not your enemy. Shame, terror, grief, desire, and realization all play a role. Embrace the opportunity to find completeness. No, this is order. This is order in the midst of disorder. You are not a failure because of the storms within you. They are indicators of coming back. The you that was once scattered across 100 different definitions of sufficiency is coming back. You are not doomed when the shadow appears. It is delivered. Eliminate unfounded claims and establish verifiable facts. And out of the shadows emerges a guiding light, not of ambition, but of spirit. Musical interlude. The rekindled flames do not roar. The truth is whispered as it flickers. It comes as a gentle rumble in the emptiness, a gentle throb where coldness formerly resided. When you sit with your shadow, cry for no apparent reason, and let go of goals that don't feel personal, you'll eventually feel a stirring. I don't. Subjected to neither pressure nor absence. Rather than demanding, this new energy embraces. Not to wow anyone, but to let your spirit soar. In subtle, nearly imperceptible ways, you start to notice it. Not because you think anyone will read what you write, but because writing is as natural as breathing, a longing to pick up a pen again. Having an overwhelming need to disconnect from technology for a while, go for a walk, and simply be in the fresh air can help you appreciate life again. Without any remorse, you decline the draining coffee date. The meeting is skipped, which would have bound you to a position in which you no longer have faith, helping you to feel complete rather than bereft. A holy change has taken place. Moving for honor now, not proof, is your new mantra. Not the ego or the mask, but the more fundamental core of being that unites the various aspects of the mind. That is what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of the self. And now that part of me starts to speak, not urgently or loudly, but clearly. Your body is telling you something is different. Breath is now present where tension was. As soon as you were ready to display, as you relaxed and became at one with being, there hasn't been a dramatic change. A low-key comeback. You are bringing back vitality that had been dispersed over 1,000 shows. A woman once lived her life in order to satisfy others' expectations. As a friend who never missed a call and a dependable worker, she was the ideal partner. There was a checklist mentality in her life. She put her value in the opinions of others. Something, though, has changed recently. As she drinks her tea in the garden one morning, she observes the sky as it changes colors. Currently, she isn't in a hurry to post, to elucidate or transform it into written form. Feeling it, that's all. She felt the heat on her skin and heard her breath slow to a whisper. And in that silence, she knows that this is all there is. Only she needs it. This is not due to her actions, but rather her very being. That is the strength of a fire that is kindled by completeness. The purpose of its ascent is not dominance, conquering, or climbing. It takes flight to shed light. Now you're working out of passion, not obligation. Speaking is done for alignment, not performance. Creativity drives you, not the desire for fame. Speaks to your spirit. The biggest change, though, is that you no longer pursue. What do you think? You're no longer in a hurry to be noticed. Your reflection is there. That doesn't imply you should quit trying. What this means is that striving is now driven by meaning rather than anxiety. Even so, objectives should be based on resonance rather than acknowledgement. Work hard, but don't sacrifice who you are in the process. Pick activities that boost your energy rather than ones that deplete it. From this vantage point of non-force, the irony is things start to change. It wasn't because you asked for it, but rather because you made yourself available. As a subtle upheaval, the fire resumes its course. I don't mean in terms of content, but rather delivery. No longer clinging, no longer acting out, no longer reactive. Rather than being afraid of falling behind, you act when the time is right. You can relax in peace. There is no rationale for your actions. Embrace your true self without seeking approval from others. Additionally, you begin to give it to yourself. Then, an almost imperceptible change occurred. Mist. Your life starts to revolve around you. At some point in your life, you will stop seeking meaning and start experiencing it fully. It comes without fanfare or sweeping proclamations. It approaches stealthily, like the calm after a tempest. When the dew has just dried off the leaves and the air is crisp and clear. No one, not even yourself, will ever again demand an explanation for your choice. With the arrival of a more profound understanding, the uncertainties that had previously troubled you, the ones that had caused you to feel inadequate, broken, or behind, start to fade away. I'm not sure. Living life to the fullest. It's your home. This is the beauty of being fully integrated. That pride that once bowed to validation is now subservient to actual presence. You have found a home for the shadow that had been calling out for help. Now the spirit that lurked beneath it all can shine, not to lead you to perfection, but to tranquility. You find yourself moving to the beat of your own breathing. The question, "What should I do?" becomes less important when you begin to actively listen to what is being communicated to you. This change is sacred, not revolutionary, not audible, yet distinctly authentic. Less is more when you realize that the truth is more profoundly conveyed through your words. Before agreeing, how do you take a deep breath? For the love of your own energy, not because of any dread. You just up and disappear from places where you're feeling down in the dumps. Just clarity, no bitterness. You cut ties with those who deplete your energy, with roles that once defined you, and with those who see only the version of you that was necessary for their approval. Instead of feeling guilty, you experience a sense of relief. Picture this, a person. They're now at the starting line of the life they battled for. The posh office, the unending admiration, the carefully constructed persona. All it takes is a deep breath for them to realize that this place isn't home. It wasn't that they weren't successful. It was that success was never the goal. The diversion was the problem. As soon as they exhale, they pivot and depart. Nothing flashy or dramatic, just a peaceful reconnection with one's inner self. Almost as good as taking a deep breath after a long absence. Now we reach the stage when striving is over, embodiment starts. The world will not validate your value until you do. There is no need to negotiate with your past in order to find peace. Well, you are. That entity alone is sufficient. You respond based on what is true, not what others expect. You don't work for your rest. You take it when you need it. Integrity, not impact, is your life's purpose. And as a result, the light in your life starts to emanate from within rather than the outside. It has finally hit you. You were never meant to justify your happiness, validate your contentment, or articulate your departures. Internal logic is not applicable to the self. Its home is a serene harmony. When you prepare your own meals in the calm of your own home, you can almost feel it. The moment you turn down an invitation because it doesn't fit anymore. You will no longer be in search of your purpose when you awaken and no longer feel a sense of urgency to fix, chase, or prove. This is your life. This understanding starts to sink in, not just mentally, but physically as well. You were never supposed to maintain your motivation. Your destiny was to find completeness. optimal for taking action in silence, full enough to relax without shame, authentic enough to know that you don't have to prove anything with your life. All it needs is a resident soundtrack. Your motivation remains intact. You progressed past the self-awareness that required it. The once ambitious thing is now just background noise. Something more fundamental has started to hum under your skin now that it's gone. Life is no longer about chasing after this. The key is to be still long enough for opportunities to present themselves. Never was there a void the size of which terrified you. Here, in this clearing, delusions could take flight, destroyed in order for the veracity to surface unfiltered and complete. It was never the intention of this journey to inspire you to return to a system that determined your value based on how exhausted you were. The idea was that by shaking up your routines, roles, and rules, you would be forced to face the true you. It was individuation, according to Carl Jung. Rather than reinventing yourself, you should go back to the beginning, to something that has always existed and is just waiting for you to be honest enough to bring it to the surface. You are not broken. Rather, you are opened. What happens if you discover? If you find yourself glued to the ceiling, devoid of any motivation to face the day, or if even your passions seem unfamiliar or forced, please know that this does not constitute failure. What you're experiencing is the spiritual side of withdrawing from things that no longer touch you. You are very active. Lucidity has taken hold of you. When clarity first comes, it can be a strange and unsettling experience. However, it is in that stillness that your authentic voice emerges. Who was not taught to make an impression, the one that is meant to find a home. Now that you're falling behind, you stop moving. Something within you signals that it is time for you to take action. At the moment when the truth is pure in the words, you maintain your identity by acting in a way that no one can see you. You are not a machine. Thus, when you relax, it is not because you have worked hard. Rather, it is a reminder of this fact. Here, you can find completeness. There will be more. Here you can reconnect with your breath, your essence, and your self-awareness, as well as the sacred knowledge that you were never meant to remain on fire. The idea was that you would embody the warmth. You maintained your motivation. You grew too alert to maintain your facade for much longer. When an issue arises within this, if the message moved you, if even one word reflected your inner experience, I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments. Has the presence of that one soul ever made you feel at home? Or are you still on the holy road leading you to your true self? No matter how unfinished your story is, it has the potential to be a light for someone else. The very indication they were in search of without realizing it. And if you or someone you care about is secretly fighting the false belief that love is always painful and that giving up on oneself is the cost of linking up, or that they don't deserve stability, give them a copy of this video. Please help me communicate with those who need to know that true love does not require us to be small. There is no need to give one's soul up for genuine connection. Plus, the bond we develop with our own self-knowledge is the most important one we'll ever have. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell before you leave. Here we delve into the depths of things, discovering the intricate web of the mind, the secrets of the unconscious, and the interconnectedness of all. A relationship is only a reflection of our own growth and development. Leave a comment below if you have any questions, themes, or wounds you would like us to address in upcoming videos. You're the reason this place is alive. We value and greatly appreciate your opinion. Not only did you show up to this video, but you also showed up to the sacred labor of remembering your true self to your inner work. Your spirit will know, not in terror, but in tranquility when the right person shows up. Keep this in mind at all times. But, for the time being, let the bond you foster within yourself be your closest companion. Yes, that is the groundwork. Home is where it's at. All things real originate from that state of completeness. Until our paths cross again, I will be by your side.